I need it. I need it. Let's go.
Thank God it's Friday.
The guy.
Welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur, John Iadarola with you guys. John is, of course, the host of Damage Report. Check it out every day live at 1 o'clock Eastern on YouTube and everywhere else we are. Second hour, we're going to have an interesting power panel. Me, Nina Turner, and Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's going to join us today as one of our guest hosts. And so we're going to have an interesting discussion about Iran with them and with John as well. We're going to give you all the updates, including we've lost more planes and ships and men, and here come the ground troops. So tons and tons of updates. But in the second hour with Representative Greene and Senator Turner, we're also going to discuss the SAVE Act, that's the voter ID law, housing, and so what kind of agreements and disagreements are we going to have? So tune in for that. All right, so John, let's start with Iraq. I'm sorry, Iran, but kind of Iraq because the plane crash was in Iraq. Right.
It's feeling kind of similar too, but yeah, you undersold the most fun story, Shoegate. Shoe done it. What's going on with the shoes? But anyway, I think it does actually have a lot to say about the political movement. So in any event, we do have a lot to get into, and there are a lot of updates when it comes to both Iraq and now Iran. So why don't we jump into it?
When are you gonna know when it's over?
When I feel it.
Okay.
I feel it in my bones.
A major setback has struck US military operations in the Middle East as a Boeing KC-135 Stratotanker crashed in western Iraq while supporting combat missions linked to the ongoing war with Iran.
War is hell. War is chaos. And as we saw yesterday with the tragic crash of our KC-135 tanker, bad things can happen.
Yeah, bad things do happen, increasingly so when you decide to start a war for literally no reason. And I'm glad that the Secretary of Defense there at least acknowledged these deaths. He continues to refuse to take seriously the fact that we bombed that school full of little girls. But as he was alluding to there, yes, an air refueling plane did crash in Iraq. And the story's been developing over the night. The number of dead has gone up. We were told originally 4, now it's at 6. That brings the official number of American dead in Donald Trump's war of choice in Iran to 13. And Cenk, you heard that first clip that it's just up to Trump's bones, I guess, to decide when this conflict is over. Do you think there's any chance hitting 13 dead will give him that feeling in his bones?
No. I mean, maybe his bone spurs, but so look, a lot of folks have passed away already, 13 Americans, but we also have details John's gonna give you about the number of ships that have been hit. We've now lost 4 planes, and nevertheless, the administration is telling us this is super easy. Now, at the same time, they're also sending in ground troops. So John will give you the facts on the damage, then we'll come back and talk about the ground troops.
Yeah, I think it's very reasonable for us to talk primarily about the service members who have died, and it is a tragedy, every single one that died, and none of them needed to die and wouldn't have died if not for Donald Trump. But let's bear in mind, you know, there's been 11 Israelis that have been killed. There's been far over 1,000 Iranian civilians who have died in Lebanon thanks to the cover this war has provided. More than 100 children have died in the Israeli bombardment there. So there's a lot of deaths to go around. And coincidentally, I acknowledged this on the Damage Report this morning, 13 American dead we've now hit. That is the number of American service members that died in Biden's pullout from Afghanistan. And that number, we were told at the time, was an utterly unacceptable number of dead. And the Republicans hammered Biden about it for literally years. And I hear crickets now about it. can't seem to work themselves up to criticize Donald Trump. And that was to get out of a war. This is to stay in one for reasons that he can't articulate. So let's talk now about how these most recent American soldiers were killed by Donald Trump's war. According to the US Central Command, the incident occurred in friendly airspace during Operation Epic Fury, and rescue efforts are ongoing. 2 aircraft were involved in the incident. One went down in Western Iraq, the other landed apparently in Israel. And we are told that it was not due to hostile fire, understandably so. This was far away from hostilities or even friendly fire, which of course has been an issue in this conflict already. Now, here is what we are hearing from Iran. So our side is saying it wasn't as a result of fire. The Islamic Resistance in Iraq is an umbrella group of Iran-backed armed factions. They claimed responsibility for downing military refueling aircraft. The group said in a statement it had shot down the KC-135 aircraft in defense of our country's sovereignty and airspace. And if you're not familiar with this type of plane, it's a big refueling plane. Basically, it refuels other planes in midair so that they can conduct longer or further missions. The plane is also used to transport wounded personnel during medical evacuations and conduct surveillance missions. It's not like a combat plane, though. It's a support plane that operates outside of the immediate theater there. And it would be considered rare for them to be shot down because they're just not close by. And so it's entirely possible that this group is just bravado. They want to claim that they've done more damage than they did, so they're saying that. Or it's possible that they did actually shoot it down. We don't know for sure. We do know that the planes were quite old. These particular tankers have been in service for more than 60 years. And there have been other fatal crashes with KC-135s in the past. There was one back in May of 2013. So it's possible it's just another, unfortunate incident like that tragically resulted in multiple deaths. Now, on the other side, CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper confirmed that they had hit over 5,500 targets inside of Iran, including more than 60 ships. But that said, Iran still has the capability to do damage. They're not shooting down our jets or anything like that, but they have hit at least 16 oil tankers, cargo, and other commercial ships in or near the Strait of Hormuz. That continues every day. Every day we're told they have the situation under control. Every day Trump tells them to just have guts, and Hegseth says, we've got it on lockdown, trust me. That's literally what he said. And every day more get hit. And it's clear that that is a big part of the strategy of Iran. The new Ayatollah, who might or might not have been hit in a strike in the last 24 hours, stressed that these attacks will continue, saying the leverage of blocking the Strait of Hormuz must also continue to be used. Studies have been conducted regarding the opening of other fronts in which the enemy has little experience and will be highly vulnerable, and their activation will be carried out if the state of war continues and in accordance with strategic considerations. And they say also that they're going to avenge the blood of those who were killed in the school bombing. It's entirely possible, Cenk, that's more bravado. I don't know what strategies they're referencing there, but we do know that if and when they send in ground troops, and there's reason to believe that that's likely to happen. Iran's a big country with a lot of people, incredibly mountainous. It feels like kind of like a worst case scenario of all the worst parts of Iraq and Afghanistan all balled into one. So what do you think?
Yeah, let me give more facts and then I'll get into my opinion. We've got now 4 planes that we've lost. I can't tell either if the last plane was shot down and we're lying about it, or they just had a near collision midair and one of the planes fell, another one landed in Israel. But either way, when you start a war, are you going to lose some planes? Of course. Are you going to lose some American service members? Of course. So that's not of course, so that's a good thing. That's of course, so don't start the war, because it's guaranteed. It's baked in. And we're talking about $2 billion a day that we're spending on this war. We talked about that yesterday. Now Scott Bessent says, oh, by the way, it's caused another $11 billion in damage to the American economy. So now the 11.8 billion was in the first 6 days. Now we're at day 14. So if I'm doing the math right, we're already at about $35 billion in costs for this war in the first 2 weeks. And as far as I know, that does not count the 4 planes we lost or the munitions that we used. So that is a tremendous cost to America. And the costs to our service members are incalculable, infinite to their families. And there's gonna be a lot more of them as we begin to tell you about the ground troops. And already we've spent a gigantic amount of money. And of course, this is all for Israel's war. We have no interest in there. And Trump has said 1 billion times, we destroyed their whole Navy, their whole Air Force, all their land minesweepers, and their ballistic missiles and their regime. Then what are we still doing there? So we know what we're doing there. Israel wants regime change, and they want it to be specifically their own puppet. A little bit later in the program, I'll tell you what their latest trick is to reel us into ground troops. So now in terms of the ships that have been hit in the Strait of Hormuz, it was 6 the day before, then it jumped to 16. And Trump was speaking to the G7 leaders, and he says, we got it all figured out. Strait of Hormuz is gonna be cleared, no problem, you can send your ships through. 2 more ships got hit after he told the G7 leaders that. That night they were on fire, right? So we don't have anything under control. Our president is an enormous liar, totally delusional, and has absolutely no idea what's going on. Again, we'll talk more about that a little bit later in the show. Now, to update John's numbers, last I saw, 14 Israelis killed, they say 2,000 injured. In Lebanon, we've got over 600 civilians last I checked, but again, all these numbers are gonna go up dramatically when the new numbers come in closer to nighttime. So every day we wake up to a new nightmare. And by the way, the Lebanon thing is, Israel had planned to invade Lebanon all along, and now they've moved out 800,000 to 1 million people. They made them refugees, and they're bombing all over Lebanon. And that's because they had always planned to take territory in the middle of this war. This is all about Israel's agenda, has nothing to do with us. If we had any objectives, Donald Trump has now told us 1,000 times we've already accomplished them. So we should leave immediately. Okay, now to my opinion, along with leaving immediately, time is not our friend, guys. That's why I say immediate. So we're number one, the longer we go, the less defensive missiles we have. People keep sleeping on that, they keep forgetting about that. But part of the reason for the new wave that I'm about to tell you that's coming in is because we need more defensive missiles. And that's just after 2 weeks. And remember, we use 1/4 of our defensive missiles for our entire stock in the earlier 12-day war. We have not had time to replenish them. Now, if we're going at the same pace as that 12-day war, that means another 1/4 of our defensive missiles are gone. We only have half left. If I understood the reporting right, of our entire arsenal. What are we gonna do when we don't have any defensive missiles left? They take a long time to build. They cost about $4 million. Iranian drones only cost $35,000. And the Strait of Hormuz, it doesn't look like they're going to be able to get it open at all. So now oil prices are back to skyrocketing, even though, again, later in the show, we're gonna tell you about how we're saying, okay, Russian sanctions, we didn't mean it. You just put in all the oil. When we put in, what I think $178 million from our reserves, 32 other countries put in $400 million barrels from their reserves. And so now, and by the way, that was all of a record release, totally unprecedented in history, and oil prices still went up. That's how bad this is, right? So the Iranians say they're gonna try to drive it to $200 per barrel, which it'd be $10, $12 for a gallon of gas in America. I mean, and this is just an epic disaster in every way. Now, you saw Donald Trump say there in the first clip, this war will be over when I feel it. What is that? What is it? I mean, what a moronic president. You say, I don't know, I feel it. What does I'll feel it mean? What is our objective? The G7 leaders asked Trump, okay, yes, but what's your goal? Because now a lot of us are in this war. What is our collective goal? When do we know it's over? He said he didn't know. Oh, come on, man. And then to John's point about crickets, John, you know, there's a lot we're not talking about in national media, right? Or they're not talking about in traditional media, establishment media. Number one, no one's talking about the invasion of Lebanon. Like, that's just apparently normal. Like, oh yeah, Israel's going to take more land from their neighbors and slaughter them. That's okay, that's okay, that's totally normal. No, it's not. It's outrageous and disgusting and unbearable. I saw a video of a 3-year-old who was murdered by the Israelis in this bombing campaign. I mean, go watch those 3-year-olds murdered by the Israelis and tell me that it's normal. It's not normal at all. And then in terms of the Democrats, where the hell are they? I couldn't help myself, did a furious live video about it this morning. Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries are like, I don't know if they're with Savannah Guthrie's mom, but they're missing. I don't know, let's do a search party. I don't know where they are. But honestly, John, other than Ro Khanna, I don't see any Democrat fighting back. A little bit of Chris Murphy, a tiny smidge of Ruben Gallego. I don't see AOC's nowhere to be found. Squad's nowhere to be found. Progressive Caucus is nowhere to be found. We need to put out search parties for 98% of the Democratic Party.
Well, I mean, John Fetterman is out there fighting against investigations into the girls we slaughtered. So he's fired up, I guess. That's something. But anyway, yeah, no, the entire thing's frustrated. But what would we have expected from Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries? They haven't done anything for over a year now. Why are they going to start now? Especially when this isn't a thing they necessarily disagree with Trump all that much on. There's been past things where at least I buy that they kind of disagree. I don't know that they necessarily disagree with any of this. Because sure, it's a failure for us. And I think, look, I said relatively early on that Donald Trump was giving off major lame duck things. That was maybe a bit early. I'm going to say we lost this war. I mean, we lost it before we launched it because the military told Trump that his stated goals, which are constantly changing, were not going to happen. You were not going to get regime change by bombing them. That's not a thing that was going to happen. You were not going to be able to secure the Strait of Hormuz. It's not a thing that's going to happen. And he decided to do it anyway. And so I think that we lost because we could never win. He was never going to get what he said he wanted, even though what he says he wants changes constantly. I even heard him talk about the Iranian people and how it's important for them to be free. I haven't heard him talk about that in a long time. Lots of people in his administration are talking about nuclear weapons. Like you can't see a Republican on Fox News without them talking about it. Donald Trump barely even talks about that anymore. He just talks about how it's awesome that we're killing them and that, oh, tomorrow we're gonna hit them even harder. He just announced next week we're gonna hit them really hard. And I think that's a good idea. We should try that. We probably should have tried that on day one, actually. So it isn't just that the war is stupid and that it's failing, but Donald Trump also, and the Republicans around him, are so much worse at the comms side of this than they used to be. He's not selling the war, a war that on day one was less popular than any military engagement that America has engaged in the better part of 50 years. All the Republican senators are rushing to TV to tell everyone to shut the hell up about gas prices. It's a sacrifice you should willingly make when you voted against more wars, and they think that's a winning message. And meanwhile, who's winning? Well, Israel's getting everything they want. They get to kill some Iranians. They get the air defenses taken out. So if they want to do further missions, they'll be a little bit safer. They get cover to invade Lebanon, steal a little bit more land. Obviously, Vladimir Putin is doing well because he's going to make absolute bank off of gas prices going up. So I guess they're doing well. The American people once again are getting the shaft. That's what it feels like, Cenk.
Well, that's what it feels like. Is definitely true. Now, speaking of that, let's go to the escalation that has been ordered. So both Wall Street Journal and Axios reporting right before showtime. Several more warships are headed to the Gulf, more F-35s, and most importantly, 5,000 ground troops, Marines and sailors. And you don't send ground troops unless you're going to use them. So all that talk of like, well, no. Red line is ground troops. Oh, this is gonna be easy. It's gonna be like Venezuela. We're just gonna bomb them. We're gonna annihilate them, obliterate them. We're so cool and manly. Then we're gonna do some push-ups. Well, you've done all your push-ups and now you're sending in ground troops just like we told you they would. Okay, so there are two reasons they're gonna use it as an excuse. Going forward, you will see this all over your television, and when you see it, you'll know that there's a script ahead of time. None of this is true. It's scripted theater. They're gonna start telling you about, oh my God, the uranium is dispersed throughout Iran. There's no way we can get it unless we have ground troops. Do you want nukes? If you don't, like, we're all gonna die of nuclear war unless we put in ground troops and get the uranium. Now, do they have nuclear weapons? No, not at all. Not at all. But they're gonna pretend that they do, and they're gonna say, well, there's some enriched uranium. We have no idea where it is in a country 4 times the size of Iraq, but I guess we're gonna have to put in a lot of ground troops to try to find it. And then they're gonna talk about the Iranian religious police. There's a a group there, and they said, well, they're against gay people, and Trump started talking about it today. You would like to protect the gay people of Iran, and that's why you're gonna put in ground troops? And women, they're constantly beating and raping women. Here we go again with the rape, right? Meanwhile, Israel just let out 5 guys who raped Palestinian prisoners in their gulags on tape. We saw it, right? And the Israelis are like, congratulations. One of them is now like being celebrated on television, being like, yes, way to rape the Palestinians, right? I'm not making it up, guys. You can see it there's video of it on Israeli television. There's no question that they let him go. But meanwhile, we have propaganda about, the Iranians are raping their own women. So the only way to beat these police in Iran is to do ground troops. Wait, are we going to fight all of the police in Iran? And are we still pretending that this is for the Iranian people as we drop bomb after bomb on top of their heads? So John, this is about to get way, way worse.
Yeah, it definitely looks like that. No, we kept, and I'll end on this. We kept saying when they sent all the ships, massive armada, they did it to Venezuela, and we said they're not doing that unless they're gonna use it. And then they did it in Iran, and we said they're not gonna do it unless they're gonna use it. And we were proven right both of those times. They're not sending 5,000 Marines just to take, great pictures off the side of a ship or something. They're sending there to land them. And so, we're gonna get another test of a more significant swath to the American public who were vocally against this war before. Now we're gonna have ground troops. We're gonna see if finally we get some popular opposition to this. There should be massive groups of people in the streets. Why are there not protests like there were in the invasion in Iraq? When at least they had a little bit of good propaganda around that. They're not even trying this time. We
John,
barely even see anything.
I have an answer for that. It's because the Democratic leaders have betrayed us. And so a lot of times those groups that organize the protests work with Democrats, and they're just stooges for the Democrats. So if the Democrats say don't protest it, they don't do it. So they're all sitting on their hands waiting for permission from Chuck Schumer, who actually loves this war and is so happy we launched it on behalf of his beloved Israel. And then he's gonna say during the elections, him and Jeffries, even as they stuff their pockets and their mouths full of Israeli lobby money, they're gonna turn around and go, we were opposed to the war, when in reality, they were totally 100% in favor of it. And prove me wrong. Get on TV and fight against the war. I've seen none of it from them, none of it. Giant liars. And wow, it turns out 94% of Congress taking money from the Israeli lobby was relevant. Mainstream media told you, it's not relevant. Those politicians are so honorable, they would never care about that.
Yeah.
Look at them, all of them, either outwardly or secretly totally in favor of this war because they were paid to be in favor of the war by the Israeli lobby. And that's how this game is played in America. It's sick, it's disgusting, and the number one thing you should do is get money out of politics. Otherwise, foreign governments and corporations are gonna buy our politicians to the end of time. And in the short term, vote out all of the incumbents. Unless their name is Ro Khanna or Tom Massey, or you could show me exactly how they fought this war, vote out all the bums because they're totally against you. They've totally betrayed you, and they're working for a different country. Plus the defense contractors, plus the oil companies. All their donors are ecstatic. That's why the Democrats aren't fighting at all, and that's why the Republicans are driving you further and further into this war where more of us are gonna get killed, and they're gonna celebrate in Washington, and they're gonna celebrate in Tel Aviv. All right, we're gonna take a break. Yeah, when we come back, more disasters about this war because Trump has talked about it, and when you see what he said, you're gonna realize the president is completely delusional. I'm not saying that as like some sort of hyperbolic attack against them, guys. It's literal. You'll see when we return. All right, back on TYT, TYT.com members. Gemma says Trump doesn't care about the dead. Trump cares about higher oil prices for his donors, more military industrial spending for his donors, Israeli blackmail involving Epstein, and helping Zionist donors. Can't find a lie. Winston Smith II says, don't worry, Lockheed Martin, Grumman, and Boeing will be reimbursed 2-to-1 by us. Yep, they're going to be incredibly rich. They love this war, death, and destruction. They're having parties at Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and Boeing. They're probably setting off firecrackers. The billions we're gonna make, maybe trillions from all the dead. Way to go, Israel. And they probably high-five with them. TO1790 says his illusions best proves that we are losing. Don Dada Dragon says they're going to use the mines in the Strait of Hormuz in place of the ridiculous IED goal. If we stop, they'll put mines in the strait again. We have to do regime change. You're right about that too. They'll do that. They'll do every single thing to allow you into further and further into this war. And by the way, we're going to find out who MAGA is, right? Because the independents are already lost to Trump. They're already gone. They meant it. They were anti-war. MAGA, you said you were anti-war and you said your red line was ground troops. Yeah, I'm looking forward to finding out. Electrifying on Twitch says, send Doge to the Middle East to save us some money. Isn't that hilarious? Yeah, where's Doge? Brandon Young Kempkin says, I think the military would rather you think that it was a mechanical problem than a failure militarily. Absolutely, that's why I don't fully believe them. Magic Breakfast Spirit says, I can't believe you're about to have MTG. I'm excited and nervous. You're insane, Jenk. LOL, I love you. Yeah, why not? Let's have some fun. Back on TYT, Cenk, John, Imusa36, and Dave Beckman. Thanks for joining, guys. They hit the join button below. We really appreciate it. TYT.com/join. And the 2-minute ad breaks that we have, you actually get content during those breaks if you're watching in the members feed on TYT.com. If you're a YouTube member, you can connect your account. It's free. You already paid. So TYT.com/connect. Speaking of money, let me save you some money. Switch your service to Noble Mobile. I did. And I've been saving a tremendous amount of money. I'm paying in the 30s. The max you could pay is 50, and they give you money back if you don't use your data. We're all on Wi-Fi, so we don't use our data. TYT.com/switch. You're gonna do it eventually, and then you're gonna regret that you didn't do it earlier because it saves you a ton of money every single month. And by the way, right now, they have $40 off the first month. So this is a great time to do it. TYT.com/switch. All right, John, what's next?
Okay, let's jump into more war.
Well, I think it's important for your viewers, Jesse, and the American people to know that there's never in history been a more total asymmetric, one-sided annihilation of the enemy than you are witnessing that is unfolding right now in Iran. The United States, under President Trump's leadership, has annihilated their Navy, has annihilated their missile capabilities, has dealt devastating strikes to the IRGC and their command structure, has taken out, in collaboration and coordination with Israel, their nation's sinister leadership and command structure.
Fantastic. Then let's come home. Let's go. I mean, Stephen Miller just told us we've annihilated everything in Iran. So why are we still there? Let's go home. Of course, Stephen Miller, after saying that, said we should stay longer. And now we're finding out ground troops are on the way. 5,000 ground troops are on the way. And it turns out also the president has absolutely no idea how to end this war. You're gonna see the actual quotes and numbers here. So John, tell us all about that.
Exactly. Why don't we jump into that? Because the president publicly certainly seems very confident about the war effort. He doesn't acknowledge any of the issues that we've faced. He says we are totally destroying the terrorist regime of Iran, militarily, economically, and otherwise. Yeah, if you read the failing New York Times, which has been failing for 10 years, for Donald Trump's view of it. Weird how that works. You would incorrectly think that we are not winning. And there he's referencing the fact that they've mentioned the fact that US service members have died, which is unacceptable. You're not supposed to do that. And they reported on the fact that we slaughtered 150 plus young girls. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to pretend that we never kill civilians. And so he says we have unparalleled firepower, unlimited ammunition, which is quite literally not true, and plenty of time. Watch what happens to these deranged scumbags today. We have plenty of time to do this. There's no rush to end it or anything. They've been killing innocent people all over the world for 47 years. And now I, as the 47th president of the United States of America, am killing them. What a great honor it is to do so. And if you just took that one True Social post and showed it to someone back in like 2012, their head would literally explode that this is how the world has decided to go. So that's his public facing persona. We got this, it's fine, there's no issues. And sometimes we find out from sources inside the administration that privately he's spinning a whole different sort of narrative. In this particular case, according to Barak Ravid, reporter for Axios, Trump is as confident about the war's outcome in private as he is in public. But yeah, it kind of seems like he's maybe a little bit overconfident. And so here's an example. Trump told G7 leaders in a virtual meeting on Wednesday that Iran is about to surrender, according to 3 officials from those countries. 24 hours later, Iran's new supreme leader issued his first public statement vowing to keep fighting. And so Trump has, publicly and apparently privately, he said Strait of Hormuz is fine, and then ships get blown up. The regime's gonna fall, and it's not. And he doesn't seem to have paid any attention to the military intelligence reports from before the war that said this strategy was not going to work to accomplish his goals. So it begs the question, why is he so confident then, considering the way the war is going and what the military told him about the likely path of the war? Well, it might be that it's just the problem he's always had, which is that he watches too much Fox News. And if you watch Fox News, here is the sort of coverage of this war that you're seeing.
Whether fake news CNN likes it or not, Iran's rogue regime is now getting crushed. Now think about this. The new supreme leader is either unwilling or unable to appear in person for his first public address. I'd like proof of life here. Or he's just scared to death and he's hiding in a bunker. So forget the hand-wringing, constant complaining on the left, because the objectives of this military campaign have always been very clear, very attainable, and now being met at an incredible pace.
Unequivocal, unambiguous, unforgiving. Operation Epic Fury will continue until the job is done.
We don't want to have to hit civilian infrastructure because we don't have a beef with the Iranian people. We want the country to be able to rebuild easily when the war is over and take their country back. But the regime leftovers are launching indiscriminate attacks against Middle Eastern neighborhoods and banks, refineries, even American consulates. Imagine they had a nuclear weapon. It's exactly why we're in this when we are.
And importantly, you have to imagine that because they never have, and there was no reason to believe they were going to. But yeah, I think North Korean news could learn a lot from watching Fox News. You can lay it on even thicker than they typically do. And so that's bad, the fact that they whitewash the way the war is going. They utterly ignore the fact that we slaughtered all of those girls. Their lives don't matter. Remember that the next time they claim to be pro-life. The issue isn't just how they've covered the war so far, it's what they've been pushing for. And there, I mean ground troops. Take a look.
And the Iranians are still sitting on some uranium they squirreled away after Operation Midnight Hammer. That's too dangerous to leave in their hands. They're highly motivated to nuke up as fast as they can because it's their only defense. That makes Pickaxe Mountain, Iran's fortified underground facility, a major target. It needs to be secured, and that could require special forces at a later date.
We killed their commander, and we're killing a lot more, and the Israelis' intelligence on the ground is unbelievable. Hopefully that leads to grabbing that uranium out of some of those destroyed sites. Maybe that'll be something that'll be announced shortly. I just wonder how soon until we decide to grab that Karg Island, where 90% of all the Iranian oil is shipped. We have that. You want the ultimate leverage. We have it.
There it is on the map.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that that's something the president's talked about since the 80s. Everyone knows it, and that would really get their attention.
Oh, I didn't know that you could find it on a map. I mean, obviously then we should put Marines in harm's way, clearly. And Cenk, I don't know, I don't get the bragging. Like, hey, maybe we killed the new Ayatollah. who cares? There's any number of ayatollahs. They can put the robes in the hat on whoever they want. Why are you bragging so much? And the fact that like, oh no, we got to stop them from nuking. That's what you said before this attack. That's what you said before the last attack. When will it end? But if you're a 92-year-old average Fox viewer, you have seen every one of those black and white videos of a bomb coming down and hitting a truck. You've seen that 30,000 times on loop. And so you've been convinced that all of this is super easy, barely an inconvenience. And so, but now, as you've been warning about, they're pushing harder every day to send troops into Iran.
So we talked about how they're going to come up with excuses to put in ground troops. So here they are, Karg Island, that's a new one. Oh, you heard him say the uranium, there's loose uranium. I wonder if anyone warned you guys about this. Let's go to B6 here and see what we said on the show yesterday. So there are layers of regime destruction and collapse that Israel has planned. But you can't do even the first layer without ground troops. Because Iran, the Revolutionary Guard, guys, has a giant infrastructure throughout the entire country, like we do with our military and our police. So Israel knows all of this. That's why they need to reel you in little bit by little bit. Oh, we're doing it because nukes, oh, they're gonna kill you with the weapons of mass destruction. The same exact horse crap that they fed the American people through the collaborators in the American media about the Iraq war. And now they're connecting the nukes that don't exist at all with there's the loose uranium. We got to go collect the loose uranium. Well, what can we do? We need ground troops. Oh, and voila, ground troops appear. So right before the show started, Wall Street Journal and Axios reporting 5,000 Marines and sailors headed there for ground, and they are ground troops. They're meant to go on the ground. They're on their way. A couple of F-35s are going. A couple of warships are going. So the war's going so spectacularly well that, like Stephen Miller told you in the beginning, that's why we have to send in warships we didn't expect, F-35s we didn't expect, and 5,000 ground troops. So this is just like Iran. This is just Iraq. By the way, also like Vietnam. Oh, it's a small, limited contingent of forces. Oh my God, they got killed. No one could have seen that coming. We're gonna have to send in more to avenge them. 100%. And then we're gonna have to send in more to avenge them. Yes, John?
Stephen Miller can't wait for some of these Marines to be killed. I was listening earlier this week to Lindsey Graham saying that because Beirut was bombed, then that's why we should join the Israeli invasion of Lebanon to get revenge. They're still fetishizing the death of Marines from like 30 plus years ago. If some Marines are killed here, which if they're deployed, they will 100% beat the war drums. I mean, we sat there for the State of the Union, Cenk. They were already trying to get people all fired up. Look at all these soldiers and all these medals we're pinning on them. They want to get back into that post-invasion of Iraq. Just everybody bow down, don't question anything as long as a soldier's on screen. And so I feel like we are probably less than a week away from that once these soldiers start getting killed.
Yeah, for sure. And then they keep saying these dumb things like Jesse Waters just did, like, and then indiscriminate attacks against things like American consulates. We invaded them. We attacked them. What did you think they were gonna do? That's when you attack a country, they attack you back. That's the least indiscriminate thing I've ever heard. So I don't know what the hell he's talking. And that's the thing though. That's what Trump really expected. So I'm gonna get back to some of their dumb talking points in a second. But Trump really thought, and you could tell with his private meeting with the G7, that he was like, yeah, it's gonna be easy. And he's watching Fox News. All of his advisors work for Israel, and they're all telling him, oh, keep going, sir. It's so easy. Put more guys into the meat grinder, okay? Well, it's super easy. And he believes it like a moron. And he's like, Dad, the new guy's a lightweight, Kamani Jr. And I don't find him acceptable. Who cares if you find him acceptable? These advisors have convinced the moron that the Iranians will ask him who their new leader should be. Can you imagine anything dumber in the world? They're dug in. They've got more than 1 million troops in Iran, 4 times the size of Iraq. They're not going anywhere. This regime is totally embedded. It's like removing the entire US military and all the US police. How hard would that be? Well, it's gonna be hard anywhere. And look at what the Vietnamese did to us with guerrilla warfare. Well, look at what the Afghans did to us. They had nothing. They had nothing. And and we couldn't come close to beating them. It's not because we can't, quote unquote, win. It's not that we can't destroy a whole bunch of things. It's not like they're gonna take Albuquerque, right? But the one thing we can't do is win in the way that Israel wants, which is go in there, kill their entire military and their entire police force, and take over the government, put in Israel's puppet. That's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. It's gonna be a slaughterhouse. So now they say, okay, but hey, wait a minute. These guys are cowards. It'll be no problem at all. They're sitting there in their bunker. First of all, where are they supposed to be? Like when you hit them in their own palace, I thought they were incredibly dumb to stay in their own palace. And you killed the Ayatollah and 49 top members of the regime. You said, they're so stupid. They just sat there out in the open. Now if they're in a bunker, they're like, you're cowards, can't go in the bunker. So where are they supposed to go? Outer space, right? So meanwhile though, are they cowards? Because look at this amazing video. This is not the Ayatollah, but the Iranian president in the streets of Tehran, B5, watch this. And that's him right there. Just marching through the streets of Tehran, no security, everybody's there. Basically, they're saying, what are you gonna do, bro? Like the foreign minister said, we welcome you. We're looking forward to you coming. Come on in. Because once we go on the ground, we're screwed. So now, last thing here, the Iranians are cowards, right? This is gonna be easy. Now I'm gonna show you a different video from Iran. So you're not seeing this on mainstream media, but that's why we're showing it to you here. Because if you saw it, you see the bombs going off in the front, American and Israeli bombs. You see this giant parade. They're walking towards the bombs. They don't care. They're saying, we welcome you. Come on and find out. This is going to be easy.
Yeah.
They're about to surrender. That's what Trump told the G7 leaders. They must have walked out of the meeting going, oh my God, we're totally screwed. This guy has no idea what he's doing. When we ask him what's the goal of the war, he says he doesn't know. And we ask him about how badly it's going, and he says they're about to surrender and that he's gonna pick their leader. John, he is literally delusional. It's not hyperbolic, it's not symbolic, it's not partisanship. No, the president is delusional, has no idea what's going on the ground.
Yeah, I agree. I'm sure you remember, was it Baghdad Bob? Now he's on our side. He's in charge of the war effort. Actually, it's utterly insane. Yeah, I'll end because I know we don't have time. I feel terrible for the Iranian people, many of whom probably were justifiably hopeful that somehow Trump and Netanyahu bombing Iran would help them. I didn't think that it would, but I hoped, because I do want them to be free. Trump doesn't care, and Netanyahu wants them to be ruled by a despot who does the will of right-wing, politicians in Israel or whatever. But I do feel terrible for them. But I also understand that when you start indiscriminately killing a civilian population, some of them will turn back towards the regime at that point. They're not going to look fondly upon the people who not only, again, slaughter their young girls, but refuse to actually own up to it, let alone apologize. I mean, we're never getting that out of Hegseth, Donald Trump, Marco Rubio, or anything. So what would you think of that administration? Maybe you'd join a parade and march against them at that point. Anyway, that's it for me, Cenk, if you have any other comments.
Yeah, no, it's the most obvious thing in the world, and we're getting messages from Iranian expats all across the world because this is a global show. And what they're saying is, yeah, whatever support was left for replacing the regime is kind of evaporated, because once you start dropping bombs on Iranian children's heads, of course they're gonna rally around the flag, and they've rallied around the flag. So now they're dug in for war. And remember, guys, it's not just America. America's the smaller issue for the Iranians. They would have to surrender to Israel after all that Israel has done to them and to the region. The Iranians are never going to surrender to Israel. So get that through your thick heads if you're still one of these guys who believes that Trump is a demigod and he's got all this planned out and he's got 4-dimensional chess coming from him. 4-dimensional chess. He couldn't play normal checkers. He's a moron and he's delusional. And guys, we're gonna run out of missiles. We're gonna run out of defensive missiles. Then what are we gonna do? Then you're gonna put in ground troops but withdraw your ships? No, this is an epic, epic disaster and it's only gonna get worse. All right, we gotta take a break here. We'll come right back. All right, back on TOT. Rose Orozco wrote in on Super Chat, Viva la revolución de los young Turks. Thank you for all your hard work, thank you. And bear with my Spanish there. 69 Solo said, the current president of Iran is a doctor, a surgeon, and the current president of the US holds a bachelor's degree in Epstein files. Ryan Isbell writes in, Ro said on Zateo that he supports Jeffries for speaker in 2027 already and does not think that AIPAC should register as a foreign lobby. Well, that's a mistake on his part. So I only support politicians as long as they're on the right side. And I hope he turns around on that. Hakeem Jeffries is a verifiable loser, totally pathetic, and not at all on our side. And AIPAC is a foreign lobby and the worst one in the world. And of course they should register. Neil Whittington says, keep on keeping on, TYT, appreciate you. YouTube members, the accountants, I don't know, $35 billion in 2 weeks. Medicare for all was gonna cost $32 billion. I don't know that that's exactly right. But all we heard was, how are you gonna pay for it? America last on uniparty at work. That is true. For whatever we ask, well, how are you gonna pay for it? Infinite war for Israel? Shut up, you anti-Semites. Professor A. Patrick says, why does it matter? None of them have faced any consequences for anything so far. We live under total corporate rule with Israel owning our Congress. Correct. All right, back on TYT Cenk and John with you guys. Make sure you're checking out Damage Report every day at 1 o'clock Eastern live on YouTube. Kim Gribby, thank you for joining. We appreciate you. Canadian EAD1, thank you for gifting 5 memberships. And with it, Gal, thank you also for gifting 5 memberships on YouTube. You guys are amazing. Love you guys. TYT.com/join. And during the commercial break, you get your comments read and interaction with you guys. We appreciate you. All right, John, what's next?
Okay, well, Iran actually, a little bit more on the war. Let's jump into it.
The only thing prohibiting transit in the Straits right now is Iran shooting at shipping. It is open for transit should Iran not do that.
So it's totally open for transit. I mean, Iran will sink the ship. But if Iran chooses not to sink the ships, then it would be open. Yeah, I suppose they would, wouldn't it? But that's not what they're choosing to do, because we chose to declare war on them and they have chosen to fight back. So what you're gonna see here is, in order to try to defeat the Iranians, which we're not doing at all, we're going to accidentally help the Russians. Oops. John, tell us all about it.
Yeah, I will. I love that clip. I think it's amazing. I think that it should immediately transition to that old SNL Deep Thoughts with Jack Handy coming out of that. Kids, don't drink too much, because over the decades it can do some damage to your brain, it turns out. In any event, Iran is still threatening the Strait of Hormuz. They are still firing at ships, and because of that, the administration is taking some actions to try to limit the increase in the price of oil. So the US had previously been pressuring India to cut back on purchasing Russian oil, which I'm actually surprised to find out. But it's good news. Last week, though, it gave India a temporary waiver to buy more. So they freed it up so that more of that Russian oil would help to flood the market, thereby taking down Indian demand for other sources of oil. Yesterday, it announced that the US would be issuing a 30-day waiver for all countries to buy oil from Russian ships that were already at sea. And they think they've threaded the needle where, hypothetically, this will help bring down the cost of gas, but won't put a bunch more money into Russian hands, they say, because it doesn't apply to oil that hasn't already been shipped out of the country. And supposedly, they derive a lot of the money through taxation at the point of extraction. So again, I'm surprised that they would do that. I don't know how much difference it's going to make. And also, that only works for so long. If the war continues, if the problems with the Strait of Hormuz continue, you're going to need to do more when it comes to Russian oil. And so I'm worried that this is only going to be a temporary change. Apparently, there are 124 million barrels of Russian origin oil already at sea across 30 locations as of March 12th. That's about 5 to 6 days of supply. And overall, we know that it's now been multiple days that the Brent oil prices, the global benchmark that we use, are above $100 per barrel. And so that's the thing. They're doing these actions, Cenk, to temporarily increase the supply of oil. But as many people have noted, that's not the supply of gasoline at the point of consumption. All of that stuff still needs to be refined. Literally months are gonna go by before that actually has any real effect on the markets, especially if maybe it like reassures people internationally right now. But if ships continue to blow up in the Strait of Hormuz, if the war continues to drag on, then why would people continue to be confident? And it is going to take a lot of time for that oil to actually have an effect in terms of gasoline at the point that they're consumed. So it really feels like a very small amount of action. What do you think?
Yeah, so I need to give you guys context here. So we released over 170 million barrels from our strategic reserves. And then 32 other countries released 400 million barrels from their strategic reserves. And that broke a record, most amount released. And then, of course, when you release that much more supply, then obviously prices should come down because of supply and demand. They didn't, they continued to rise. The reason they continue to rise is because 20% of the oil goes through the Strait of Hormuz for the whole world. So all of those strategic reserves weren't enough to counteract the damage done Strait of Hormuz. Now they do a deal with the Russians. We got 124 million barrels of oil coming in on top. Didn't dent prices. Prices continued to go up. We said that oil would get to $100 per barrel, and Trump and his goons were like, "Oh, ridiculous! That won't happen. Everything will be super easy." I mean, if the Iranians don't fight back, and you could go through the Strait of Hormuz if they weren't bombing you. Are they bombing you? Yeah, they're bombing you. Okay, so now the Iranians say, "Oh, you like $100 per barrel? We're going to try to get it to $200 a barrel." Okay, so that would lead to about $10, $12 per gallon here in America. Do you know what kind of cataclysm that would be? Like nobody would be able to afford the gas to go to work. I mean, and by the way, guys, oil isn't just about gas, and it isn't just about cars, which is already bad enough. But it also goes into all the plastic and all the manufacturing that we do. So your prices for everything are going to skyrocket, and they're already skyrocketing. And Trump said to the G7 guys, you'll be able to go through the Strait of Hormuz, no problem. Yeah, we got this fixed already. Right after he said that, 2 more ships got hit. We don't have anything fixed. We're sending in ground troops. We're sending in new warships. We're sending in new F-35s because we can't stop them from bombing the ships in the Strait of Hormuz. So, John, this is going to get worse and worse as we go. And I'll lay out a marker here, which is this weekend. If somehow we can get it, under control this weekend, and then they open it back up, like through warships, and they land the ground troops, and somehow they knock out the missiles and the drones that are coming from land. And if you remember on the show, I don't know if you were on it, John, but I said, look, don't put our warships in the Strait of Hormuz. Look at how easy it is to hit the ships. And the Iranians are like, come a little further, right? And we're bringing our ships right to them. Like, don't. So if this weekend, instead, the Iranians hit a couple of more ships, and then we can't straighten it out at all, by the time the markets open on Monday, it'll be an epic disaster, and maybe one we haven't seen before.
Yeah, we'll be absolutely screwed. And remember, like when they said they were taking all that oil out of our strategic reserve, draining over 40% of our entire reserve, they said it would take 120 days to deliver those barrels. So that is not a solution to the problem right now. It's just not. There is an easy solution. Get out. The best time to have gotten out of this war would be before you started it. The second best time is now. You know that old saying? It would be great for you to just end it, and you can do it because nobody wants us to be in there. You don't have any well-articulated reasons for us to be there, and even if you could articulate them, you're not gonna be able to accomplish them. So we should get out right now. And in the absence of that, like just Trump and Behexeth taking turns telling the ships it's safe to go through, that's not gonna increase morale. But I do have an idea. You might recall in Game of Thrones, King's Landing is being attacked, and Tyrion rides out to show the soldiers that they're going to be okay. I think that Trump and Pete Hegseth should go on those cargo ships, show that they're confident that it is safe. I think that would actually really help with morale.
Yeah.
For now, though, what's that?
As I said earlier in the week, Trump should go in at the front of those ships and, like, Leonardo DiCaprio in the Titanic, go, I'm king of the world, which is what he's always wanted to be. So have at it, Hoss.
Yeah.
This is your big opportunity.
Now, in the meantime, it isn't just the crews and captains of those ships whose morale is down. It's the American public who's really worried about prices going up. But that said, as bad as Trump and Pete Hegseth are in terms of messaging around this war, Republican senators are just as bad. And there have been a bunch that have come out to tell people, just suck it up, pay more for everything, when we were already in an affordability crisis. And here is a great example of Jim Jordan.
We want Iran not to have nuclear capability, and we want this thing resolved as soon as possible. But I think the American people have common sense, and they understand to stop this regime that for 47 years has killed Americans, killed Israelis, killed others, and killed a number of their own people. To stop them from getting a nuclear weapon is a worthwhile objective, and President Trump is committed to achieving that goal. And if that means prices go up for a short time, I think Americans understand we can live with that.
So first of all, the American people have been told by Donald Trump for 6 months now that we already destroyed their capability of having a nuke. So no, I don't think that they think it's a worthwhile goal to go in there. And you'll be telling them 6 months from now that we need to go back. They don't trust you, and they shouldn't. And they were very clear that they don't want wars. Trump campaigned on that. So either he's massively changed his mind or he was lying when he did it. But no, I don't think the American people should have to sacrifice this literally at all. First of all, if this is so important, the Israeli military is very capable. We've given them hundreds of billions of dollars. They can fight the war. Or if this is such an important war that they desperately want to have, Trump's rich. He could pay for it. Elon Musk. Get all your tech pros together that all think that this constant warfare is such a great idea. Have the Epstein class fund this war if it's so important for them, either in terms of the stated goals or distracting from the Epstein files investigation. The American people already said they don't want it. They should not be expected to pay for it.
Yeah, it's lame when they have to go back 47 years to find something that Iran did to us. So this has nothing to do with us. It has everything to do with Israel. They want to replace a regime with a puppet leader for Israel so that no one objects when Israel takes more Palestinian territory, Lebanese territory, Syrian territory, and becomes, as Netanyahu yesterday explained in Hebrew to the Israelis, after this war, we're going to be a regional superpower and a global superpower. That's what this is about, and John is exactly right. Then brother, why don't you send in your ground troops? If ground troops are necessary, why would we send in Americans? I hear the IDF is legendary. Have at it, Hoss. Tehran is waiting. All right, we gotta go. Coming up next, thank you, John. Everybody check out Damage Report, 1 o'clock Eastern every day. Coming up next, the Power Panel with Senator Nina Turner and Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, right here on the Young Turks. We'll be right back. At TYT, our mission is to boldly pursue truth, challenge the establishment, and drive positive change. At a time when corporate capture of our media, our government, and our politics is nearly absolute, everyday working people need a champion to fight for them and to push back against the powerful interests that threaten our democracy itself. At TYT, we're proudly progressive and call out corruption and duplicity wherever we see it, from Republicans, Democrats, or anyone else. And unlike mainstream news media outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to big pharma. We only have to answer to our audience, and for nearly 2 decades, we've accomplished that by delivering honest, timely, and insightful perspectives on the day's news without fear or favor or concern for whose toes we might step on or which powerful elites we might offend. And while we're super serious about the news, we also manage to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We can do this together and serve our audience, and yes, have fun doing it.
We talk about TYT Army being so strong. Usually they help us run our show. Now they're gonna help us run the country.
Like this. It's time that we reclaim democracy for the people.
We had a huge victory for Wolfpack.
When Lincoln said this was a country by, of, and for, he said of the people, not of corporations.
Our representatives don't represent us. Whoa, democracy!
United!
We are!
We are!
Too strong! There's thousands of volunteers, and you could be among them. When you get the power back, oh, that feels good. This is just the beginning. Knock, knock. We're coming for them! Wolf-pack.com.
Mayweather will knock out Pacquiao. Floyd beats his wife.
Okay, I get it. You're progressive. You're looking for other progressive voices. Why? Because you want real progress to happen. You're tired of the why, regular stuff. You should be checking out the Young Turks. Why? Because who else is going to have Killer Mike talking about politics and social issues in his new TV show, Trigger Warning?
My dad wrote the story of his life. It's called The Original Young Turk. It's a book on shoptyt.com. Part of the story is how I became progressive. Now, he doesn't write about that per se, but in his life story, you see, oh my God, when a community helps one another, when the government also chips in and gives you free education, anything is possible. He went from an incredibly poor olive farmer to living the American dream. Drop it. Now joining me on the Young Turks, Cenk Uygur obviously here, hosting, Nina Turner, and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Great to have you both. So of course, Nina's a former Ohio State Senator, and Marjorie's of course a former US Congresswoman. So guys, just first to lay out for everyone here, the point of this panel is not to agree, it's not to disagree, it's just to talk. It's to have an adult, grown-up conversation and find out what we all think. So we're gonna start with the issue of Iran. Start it real simple. New York Times says that about 21% of the country was in favor of this war before we started. That is a very, very low number. Representative Greene, let me start with you. Should we have gone into this war?
Absolutely not. And I'm a 3-time Trump voter. I also campaigned with the president for the past 6 years in his 2020 campaign, also in the 2024 campaign. And this was something that we promised to America over and over again on rally stages across the country, was no more foreign wars, no more regime change, and that we would put America first. And I'm very anti-war. I'm largely against it. And I know many of the people that voted for President Trump are against it as well. And I'll just say this, Cenk, we have not seen a good case laid out of why we're at war with Iran. And I think Americans overwhelmingly are against it. And they really are more interested in seeing a larger focus on domestic issues. And it's just a shame that as we're going into spring break and summer, families are once again seeing gas prices rise, the cost of diesel rise. Farmers are being hurt by fertilizer costs rising because 30% of the world's fertilizer goes through the strait. So this is absolutely not what we voted for, and I'm very much against it.
Senator Turner, should we have gone to war?
No, absolutely not. I mean, the Congresswoman and I are in total agreement. The impact of this nationally and also internationally, the whole notion of what affects one directly affects us all indirectly. It was irresponsible. The president certainly did not get authorization from Congress. It is really a shame that we have far too many Congress members, especially of the GOP, who have abdicated their responsibility to be a co-equal branch of government. And when it comes to matters of war, something that should really never happen, but rare if it has to happen, just the cavalier nature by which the president did this, and standing up before Americans and saying to them, we're gonna lose some people, as if the working class, it will be the sons and daughters of working class people in this country who will bear the overwhelming brunt of this war. And as we pivot into what is happening in the nation of Iran, to even look at the innocent civilians there that are impacted, the pollution to their air, to their water, to their food, and for us to think that there will not be consequences and repercussions, the bombing of that school that killed those little girls. I mean, you cannot war your way to peace. And the number one fact pattern that I think the American people understand very clearly is that there was no imminent threat from this nation at the time that the president took action without Congress. It goes without saying that the regime is abusive, no doubt. You're not going to get any argument with that. But you don't war your way to peace in terms of trying to help the people of that nation. So the president was absolutely wrong, and the Congress needs to hold him accountable.
Okay, so far we've got Senator Nina Turner, co-chair of Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign, Marjorie Taylor Greene, as America first as it gets, agreeing we should not have gone to war. But there's a lot more on the war that I want to talk to you guys about. Right now, the administration is saying that it's easy. In fact, Trump talked to G7 leaders, and he said, according to Axios, Trump told G7 leaders in a virtual meeting Wednesday that Iran is about to surrender. According to 3 officials from G7 countries, briefed on the contents of the call 24 hours later, Iran's new supreme leader issued his first public statement vowing to keep fighting. Now, let me show you a clip of Stephen Miller telling the American people through Fox News, don't worry, we're winning easily. So let's watch that.
Tell us about the progress of Operation Epic Fury.
Well, I think it's important for your viewers, Jesse, and the American people to know that there's never in history been a more total asymmetric one-sided annihilation of the enemy than you are witnessing that is unfolding right now in Iran.
Marjorie, are we winning?
I honestly don't know if we're winning or losing, but the president told us that this would be a 4-day, he's calling it an excursion. It's turning into weeks. We're losing our great men and women in the military. 13 have been killed now. I'm a big supporter of our military and certainly praying for them and their families, who I'm sure are so concerned. Now we're seeing an escalation. I watched Secretary Hegseth's press conference this morning, and he talked about there would be no mission creep. And then it was announced later on after that we're sending thousands of Marines to the Middle East, it seems to be to the Strait, which sounds like boots on the ground. So this is certainly an escalation, and you don't escalate when you're winning. You certainly don't need to escalate when you're winning. It's very sad, and I completely agree with the senator that the loss of life is a true tragedy. The innocent people that are being killed in Iran, that are being affected by their air, the quality of their air after the oil refineries were hit, but also the children that were bombed in the little girls' school. Here in America, our children are going to school and they're not being bombed. And none of this actually should be happening, but it doesn't seem that we're winning. The war is ongoing, and it seems to be more of an escalation. And I just want to finish with this. I'll wrap real quick. This isn't a war for America. This is a war for Israel. And this was an unprovoked war. President Trump told us back in the summer that they had completely wiped out Iran's nuclear capabilities, and he chastised anyone in the media that dare questioned him on that. And so, no, I don't think we're winning. I think we're escalating, and I have great concern of where it's going.
Yeah, so as I said earlier on the Young Turks, it's not like they're about to take Albuquerque, but that doesn't mean that we're going to quote unquote win. Did we win in Afghanistan? Did we win in Vietnam and Iraq, et cetera? But I want to back up what Representative Greene was saying there before I get to you, Nina. I'm going to show you Hegseth's clip in a second that she was alluding to, but just breaking news before we started the show. 5,000 ground troops are headed to the Gulf right now, Marines and sailors. And more F-35s and more warships are also headed there. Not exactly what you do when you're wrapping up a war that you're in the middle of winning. And here's the clownish statement that Hegseth made this morning.
The only thing prohibiting transit in the Straits right now is Iran shooting at shipping. It is open for transit should Iran not do that.
It's open for transit if Iran stops fighting. So Nina, what's your sense? Are they going to stop fighting? Are we winning? Do we have this thing almost wrapped up? Are they about to surrender?
No, absolutely not. I mean, you cannot expect a sovereign nation, whether we agree with the brutality of their leadership, to just roll over for the United States of America. And that's a point that these folks are not getting. And what enrages me even more is just the cavalier attitude that they have about sending other people's children and loved ones into war. It's as if they think they play in a video game. All Americans should be outraged by that. You cannot war your way to peace. We are at over $11 billion right now of taxpayers' dollars on this. But meanwhile, on the home front, every time we try to fight for something like universal health care, they say, how you gonna pay for it? Canceling student debt. How you gonna pay for it? The things that would enhance domestic tranquility, those of us who believe in those things are always asked, how are we gonna pay for it? But when it comes time to go to war, rarely is that question asked by the majority of the members of Congress and also presidents. This is not the only president that has tried to, that not just tried, but went around Congress. He's not the only one. But until the American people rise up and say, we are not going to take this, you are not going to sacrifice. We are sacrificing the sons and daughters for no reason. And I amen what the Congresswoman said about this is not our war. This is something that the right-wing government of Israel has wanted for a very long time. And unfortunately, they have a president in President Donald J. Trump that is willing to give it to them and sacrifice Americans. This does not seem like America first to me.
Yeah, so I'm gonna get back to America first and I'm gonna get back to the cost of the war. But Nina, let me stay with you. So the question is open as to why we went into this war in the first place. First, now the Iranian state media is starting to troll us. And so they're saying that it was because of the Epstein files and they put together this Lego thing. It feels like it's something that would have come out of Trump's account at in a different time, but here they are trolling us. Okay, so we shouldn't even be in this position to have this happen to us. But there's some who theorize that it's to distract from the Epstein files. Some who say it's mainly for Israel. And the Trump administration insists, no, there are American objectives here, although they don't quite clarify what they are. So why do you think we actually went into this war?
They can't clarify it because at the time that the president took this action, there's no proof or evidence that the administration has given that they were an imminent threat, that Iran was an imminent threat at the time. Certainly, it could be a distraction. I would hate to think that they would go this far to distract from the Epstein files. I think they did this, number one, for Israel, and then number two, for the oil. If we look at the types of places that the president has raised up on, without the authority of Congress, even from kidnapping a sovereign nation's leader, in Venezuela. We look at what they did in Nigeria, the types of places that he has put muscle to. All you got to do is look at their natural resources. And when it comes to the Epstein files, certainly we have the Congresswoman here who showed immense courage along with her colleagues, Congressman Ro Khanna, Congressman Massey, Congresswoman Summer Lee certainly showed courage at the time to say, we are going to stand with the survivors of the Epstein files and push back on this administration. So yeah, this could be a distraction. And if he is willing to make the American people sacrifice this much for a distraction on the Epstein files, we got a whole lot of we have bigger problems.
So Representative Greene, they said it was to annihilate their nukes, but President Trump told us their nuclear facilities were already annihilated. And they said that it wasn't for regime change, but now they're sending in ground troops. And plus we killed 49 of their top regime leaders. So why do you think we actually went to war?
As long as I can remember, and I'm sure it's the same for the two of you as well, we have been told on television, mainly by Bibi Netanyahu, that Iran is on the verge at any time within weeks or months away from having a nuclear weapon. And once they get a nuclear weapon, they are going to kill all of us. They're going to bomb Israel and they're going to bomb America. And then we see the recordings played over and over again, death to America, death to Israel. And of course, that's something that we as Americans completely reject and never want to be victim of some foreign nation that chants death to America or death to Israel. But I also want to say that I feel like what we've gotten from Bibi Netanyahu is nothing but propaganda, and we've gotten it for decades. And the proof is the lives that we've lived and the history that we've seen. We have not seen Iran develop a nuclear weapon. We have not seen Iran nuke Israel or nuke America. As a matter of fact, we've seen the opposite. We've seen Israel demand a war and demand America go to war with Iran, and now we have seen it happen. And I fought very hard on the Epstein files because I don't think any woman should ever be a victim in that way, especially young teenage girls or young men for that matter. I don't think anyone should be a victim of rich, powerful men, and I don't think our government should hide it and protect these rich, powerful men. So I fully understand them trolling our country with the Epstein class, but it's the Epstein class that is a true issue. And when it comes to the reasons for this Israel's war on Iran and America's complacency and willingness to go along with it, especially with President Trump and this administration, I think we can't ignore the religious nature to this. This is something that's been talked about a lot all over the internet. I'm a Christian. I believe fully in the Bible and Jesus is my savior, but I don't think the way to go to heaven is to see the third temple rebuilt. For me, it's my full faith in Jesus's work on the cross, and he said it's finished. But for many Christian Zionists, and many of them serve in the administration, that's what they think has to happen. Israel certainly wants to build the third temple. This is their religious objective. And they have held Iran, the Persian people, as their enemy for thousands of years, calling them Amalek and wanting to wipe them out. And so I fully reject, if that is the reason, some of the reasons behind the scenes that this war is being waged, I, as an American Christian, fully reject it. And I don't think that innocent people should be murdered simply for their blood or their heritage or who they are. I think America needs to stand on our own 2 feet and stop fighting Israel's wars, stop funding the genocide that they have waged on Gaza and they're now waging on Lebanon. And I think that American Christians need to return to the Bible and understand that our faith and our salvation relies on Jesus's work, not on the rebuilding of some third temple.
So let me stay with you, Representative Greene, for a couple of quick questions. So like we just said, it looks like there's 5,000 American troops headed to Iran. Shouldn't that be Israeli troops?
Yes, absolutely. American troops should not be going to this war in Iran. As a matter of fact, this war shouldn't even be taking place. And the 13 military members who have been tragically killed, and the hundreds of other American military members that have been injured, none of them should have been killed or injured. As a matter of fact, our military should be strictly focused on our homeland. That's the purpose of our military, is defending the United States if we are invaded by some foreign nation. But no, Israel, if this is the war they want to wage on Iran, let them send their sons and daughters. And if we have American politicians like Lindsey Graham or Randy Fine or any of these other sick and disgusting human beings that are demanding the death of foreign people and their children, then they should go to the front lines and they should fight this war themselves. But I don't believe this is America's war, and I don't believe it's our place.
So Nina, let me come back to you for a sec there, because so right now Israel is invading Lebanon as we speak. They use the Iran war as cover to take more land in Lebanon. They've displaced nearly 1 million people there, killed over 600 civilians, including over 100 children. So they're using their ground troops to acquire more land. Do you agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene that the 5,000 ground troops being sent to Iran should not be Americans, should be Israelis if they want this war?
Yeah, absolutely. And what we're seeing is a total scourge on the Middle East by the right-wing government of Israel. All of these nations are sovereign. I mean, as Americans, we would not stand for another nation to just boldly declare, we're coming in because we don't like what President Donald J. Trump has been doing. And so we're gonna come in and take over your country. That would be laughable. Even I would find that laughable. And despite the fact that I do not agree with 99.9% of what this president is doing. But what I do recognize as an American is that we are a sovereign nation. And so no other nation has the right to come in to try to take our land, to come in and try to tell us what to do in that manner. At the same point, we should have the same level of respect for other sovereign nations instead of utilizing the mantra that might makes right. That's just like a bully living on your street who just decides, you know what, I want your house now. So I'm gonna come in and plow it down because I have the nuclear weapons, I have the biggest guns, I have the biggest military, and I don't like you on this street. So I'm just gonna come in and take over. No one would stand for that. At the same time, the love that we should have, because just as the Congresswoman, I am a Christian woman too, hailed from the Black liberation side of this of the struggle of what it means to love your neighbor, what it means to do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and also what it means to be able to use power in a way that doesn't maim, doesn't inflict, doesn't kill, but use power to lift. War should always be a last resort, not the first resort. And that is why the cavalier, careless, callous attitude of this administration, because they're playing with other people's children's lives and not their own, is the reason why they just doing this. And so I'm glad that most of the American people, they see what is happening right now and they do not like it. Now we need a Congress that has as much courage and intestinal fortitude or ovarian audacity as the American people who are speaking up and speaking out against this war, regardless of political ideology. So absolutely not. It should not be our troops. And you know what, Jink, another thing, I care just as much about the people of Iran too, because their blood should not be shed either for this.
They're all civilians, yes.
Israelis. And Lebanon, and I mean, I know you had brought up Lebanon, but all innocent people who are now being pushed into these levels of conflict because a bunch of men, for the most part, I mean, there's some war hawk women too, are having a measuring contest that has repercussions and consequences, not just for those of us alive today, but for generations to come.
Yeah, Israelis, Lebanese, Palestinians, Iranians, they're all human beings. And we want to make sure they're all safe and nobody gets hurt. And so populist left, populist right agreeing here, but Christian left, Christian right also agreeing. So, okay, last couple of questions here and then we'll go on to some topics we don't necessarily agree on. Representative Greene, Stephen Miller was on TV again. I'm gonna show you a quick clip. It feels like he's redefining America first, but you would know better than anyone. So let's play the clip and then ask you about it.
I don't think that people understand the Trump doctrine is not isolationism. Maybe you can help set them straight, because I'm not too effective, I guess.
The president has made clear that he believes America's awesome military might should be used to protect and defend America's interests. America first means America will be the greatest, most unquestioned, unmatched power in the world.
Representative Greene, is that what America first means?
No, that's not my understanding of America first, and that's not how we campaign for America first. America first means putting Americans first. That's the American people, and the hard-earned tax dollars that they pay into the government should be used for the American people. And that hasn't happened for a long time. Take a look at what's happening in Congress. Now, I'm a conservative. I have a very strong conservative voting record, and I have voted against most of the spending bills that came to the floor during my time in Congress. But right now, they're not even funding Homeland Security. I have a major issue with that. I believe in strong borders, but Republicans can't even fund Homeland. They're not paying Border Patrol. They're not paying ICE agents. They're not paying TSA workers that are having to work to keep our airplanes safe and the security in the airports. And so while they're not funding Homeland Security, which is America first, at the same time, they're spending $1 to $2 billion a day to bomb and murder people in Iran and wage a war that none of us voted for. As a matter of fact, we voted against. And then at the same time, this Congress, supposedly America First Congress, is going to be voting soon on a war supplemental for Iran that will be $50 billion or more. You know what that is, Jake? Nina, that is called America Last. And I take major issue with it. In my district, my former district here in Georgia's 14th district, many people are struggling. They can't afford health insurance. Many people are struggling. They're working 2 to 3 jobs to put food on the table for their children. After the massive inflation we saw under the Biden administration, especially in 2022, when the Russia-Ukraine war started. You see, what war does is it rises inflation all over the world because all of us are connected and we are completely affected. These wars not only cost our money, our taxpayer dollars, and cost our military lives and our military supplies, they also cost us when we go grocery shopping. They cost us when we go to the gas pump, and they cost us more and more. And we're the American people that pay for it all. I completely agree with Stephen Miller. You don't get to campaign on America First being one way, or MAGA being Make America Great Again for Americans. And then when you get in power, to change it into something else and waging war all over the world. And I appreciate Nina bringing up Venezuela. That was another one where they went in and basically kidnapped Venezuela's leader. And now we see war on Iran. And what is next? No, Stephen Miller is wrong. This is America last. America first is when we put American citizens first and foremost.
All right, so that one was very clear. Populist left, populist right definitely agrees on this issue. No war, and let's get out, and let's serve Americans. So now let's move to an issue where we might have some disagreement. Let's talk about the SAVE Act. So this is an act that would require voter ID. You'd have to have either a passport or a birth certificate. It would get rid of a lot of mail-in voting, and then there are some other provisions in there that, well, again, we might have disagreement over. So Representative Greene, what do you think about the Save America Act?
I'm a big believer in secure elections, and I think that's important for all Americans, Republicans and Democrats. I am a big believer in ID, voter ID. Here we live in a country where you have to show an ID to buy cigarettes or nicotine products. You have to show an ID to go. You have to show your birth certificate to get a driver's license. You have to show an ID to buy alcohol. You have to show an ID to do many things in this country. You even have to show an ID to get welfare. I think it's incredibly important that American citizens only vote in our American elections, and I think it's incredibly important for people to be able to prove that they're an American citizen and that they have the right to vote. So I'm a big supporter in the Save America Act, except I'm a big critic of the Republicans in the Senate who can't get their act together because of the filibuster. So yes, I believe in election integrity. I believe in voter ID, and I think that's something that should be passed.
Senator Turner, do you think that's wrong?
I mean, I certainly believe in transparency and making sure that we protect our elections. I mean, in 2014, Jink, you may remember I ran for Secretary of State in the great state of Ohio because I believe so much in expanding the franchise and not compressing the franchise. Many states in this country already have a type of voter ID. What the Save America Act would do, would make it more onerous for people to be able to vote. The point that the Congresswoman made about people having to show a driver's license, well, under this bill, a driver's license would not be good enough. Birth certificates, passports, we know that passports could cost upwards of $180 or so. So that is a type of 21st century pay your way to vote. If we believe that voting is a fundamental right, then government could be going in the opposite direction, which is to ensure that we enfranchise more American citizens to vote. This is a solution in search of a problem because we know that there is slim to none by all studies, all reports, all accounts from folks both on the right and on the left in terms of people who monitor voter impersonation. It really rarely, if ever, happens in the United States of America. And if it happens, every state in our union have laws against it, and there are consequences, there are fines, and there's jail time. And there is not a lot of bonus for somebody to walk into a polling place to try to impersonate somebody. In other words, what do they get out of that? Compared to if somebody wanted to rob a bank, if they're successful, then they know they get the money. What do you get for trying to impersonate somebody when you go and vote? It rarely happens. When it happens, people are caught. And the states, what happened to all these states' rights? The states have rules and regulations and penalties. What the president is doing is an overreach, and he is trying to scare the American people. Just as they're doing with this war, they're doing this to make people think, oh, those people, that somebody that is unqualified to vote in America is somehow trying to vote in this country and take over. You know, Jink and Congresswoman, I just had the opportunity a couple of days ago to talk to a group of Americans who live abroad. They're called the Dems abroad. And I know we got Republicans abroad too. But I had a chance to talk to a portion of the leadership. And one of the things that was animating them was this Save America Act. And what they shared with me, a portion of their fear is the mailing. You know, will mailing be delayed and impact them? Will the rules on mail-in ballots change in such a way that it impacts them? And then also the birth certificate thing. And I asked them, I said, well, what is it? Because everybody should have a birth certificate. If you're American, you should be able to show the birth certificate. And they explained that a lot of Americans abroad might not necessarily have that birth certificate on hand, might not necessarily know where to find it, and that it just causes a lot of trepidation. So if the president and this Congress and my conservative sisters and brothers and family and friends really want to enfranchise people instead of disenfranchise people, then let's come up with ways to make it easier for those who are qualified to vote to do so, just as they are trying to make it so that the men, forcing the enlistment now, bringing back that, then they could do the same thing to help America's vote. But it is really a solution that there's really not a problem.
So Representative Greene, I want to give you more time on that. So folks say, look, there's two options here, passport or birth certificate. 9% of Americans don't have a birth certificate. Plus, when people get married, they don't have the same name anymore. Getting a new one is going to cost a lot of time and money. 50% of Americans don't have passports, and now they're starting to worry if that's going to affect Republicans more than Democrats. So what do you think about those concerns?
I think I have a lot more faith in the American people than you guys might. The Americans are extremely resourceful. They're very capable of getting their own birth certificates. They're very capable of having passports. Nina, that is so cool that there's Dems abroad. I think that's awesome. I don't know if there's Republicans abroad, but there's one thing I know about Americans living abroad is they definitely have their passports, and I would say it's very highly likely that most of them also have their birth certificates. I think voting is such an incredible right, and we want to make sure that illegal aliens are not voting in our elections, and it has happened. And once again, I don't think it's a problem for Americans to be able to get their birth certificate or their passport. Let's look at Americans can do anything when they really set their mind to it, and it's not that difficult to get a birth certificate or a passport. And I don't think this is something that's too much to ask. I know we disagree on this issue, but I certainly think it's important that people have identification, especially when they're carrying out the incredible right of casting their vote for the people that represent us. And I'll say that's so important because I would love to see a bunch of the leaders in Washington that represent us and many of the people that I served with, I would like to see them voted out of office. So I think it would be great if Americans definitely can make sure they have their birth certificate. They need it for many other things, and make sure they have a passport and can prove their citizenship when they cast their vote for the leaders they want to represent them.
But I certainly agree with Congresswoman on a lot of these Congresspeople need to be voted out. So I'm with you on that. But is it that the states who have voting identification rules right now as they exist, is it your belief that those rules across the states are not strong enough, that the states somehow are derelict in their duties to protect the integrity of elections?
I'm not accusing states. Listen, I'm a mom, and when I registered my kids for school, all along, we always had to show a birth certificate. So, and I bring that up as an example because this isn't really that complicated. And once again, I think election integrity is so incredibly important. It's not too much to ask of Americans to have the proper form of ID and be able to prove that they're a citizen of this country when they're casting their vote in our federal elections.
But they have to prove it right now. I mean, I do want the viewers to know that people have to prove who they are right now in the United States of America before they go to vote. And the Brennan Center did one of the best studies about voter impersonation fraud, because that's what we're talking about right now. And basically what they surmise is that you have a greater chance of being struck by lightning than you do to have somebody impersonate another person in the voting booth. It is onerous what is happening. And that's not, I'm not saying this is onerous. If it's a fundamental right, and we know that at times in this country, that fundamental right was taken away from people who look like me, who had to count the bubbles, the amount of bubbles in a bar of soap, or the number of jelly beans, or had to constantly always prove that they were worthy to be able to vote, which is why the African American community in particular fought so hard for voting rights. My point is this, Congresswoman, you and I agree that I don't want anybody who's not eligible to vote to be able to vote. We're together on that. What I also do not want is government to make it harder, and government to amp people up and to scare people as to somehow there's this scourge of illegal, of people who are undocumented or ineligible to vote in our country. Study after study.
Well, actually,
Nina,
Nina,
experts on this.
Nina, if I can, I have an example. It does happen. My ex-husband had his vote stolen in 2020. Someone mailed in an absentee ballot in his name. So when he showed up to vote in person, they told him, Mr. Greene, you've already voted by absentee ballot. And he said, I absolutely have not. I have not voted by absentee ballot. And they had it in the Secretary of State system that someone had voted in his name with an absentee ballot, and he had not. And he had to sign a waiver saying, relinquishing that ballot so that he was allowed to vote in person in the election of 2020. So I know you're quoting some statistics, but I've got a personal story of someone I know. And there was a whole line of people there in the Floyd County Election Center that day, an entire line that were having the same issue. They were told that an absentee ballot had been cast in their name. And so the purpose of the Save America Act is to make sure that our elections are more secure and safe, not to reject anyone based on their race or certainly make it harder on anyone's life. But I think when it comes to our elections, it's definitely worth it. And I just wanted to share that personal story with you because it's something that I witnessed and has happened to someone I know.
Okay. I respect that story. I respect that story. But this is the point. There's systems in place to catch it. That states are doing a great job right now, and in-person voter fraud is very, very rare. And if and when it happens, there are systems in place, is my main argument. But Congresswoman, I certainly respect that story that you just told.
So Senator Turner, last thing here, because Representative Greene said she would get rid of the filibuster. Now, when the Democrats were in charge, I know a lot of progressives were in favor of getting rid of the filibuster. So what do you think? Is she right about that?
Voted up or voted down. I mean, we most of us know the history of the filibuster. It too is rooted in a racist history. I mean, just straight it up, voted up or down. The Democrats should have used that tool when they had the power, but they were too cowardice to do it. So get rid of the filibuster as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, so you guys don't agree on the SAVE Act, but you do agree on getting rid of the filibuster so we could have majority
yes.
rule. All right, got it. Let's go on to the next topic. And guys, both Representative Greene and Nina Turner, Senator Turner, have been really gracious, and they're gonna stay with us to take some member questions at the end and member comments and discuss this. So hit the join button below or tyt.com/join, and at the end of this hour, we'll talk to them with just the members. Okay, so let's talk about housing. There's a new housing bill, remarkably put forward by Elizabeth Warren and Tim Scott. Speaking of left and right getting together, and it basically talks about building more housing and preventing big corporations from being able to buy residential real estate. Now that's in our populist plank, and so I'm surprised to see it getting so much approval in the Senate, as it passed very, very easily. I think only 9 people voted against it. But now all of a sudden it looks like Trump, who said he wanted it, might not sign it because he says, right or wrong, that I want to do the SAVE Act first, and it's running into some issues in the House. So curious what you think about it, Representative Greene. Do you like this bill to basically try to bring down housing prices?
Oh yeah, I want to stop all of these big equity companies from buying up all these homes. I've got 3 kids and they're all in their 20s, and that's the generation I care about. And young people today, they don't think they're ever going to be able to afford to buy a home. And the reason why home prices have been driven up so high is these big investment and equity companies that have bought up these homes, caused bidding wars, and made it impossible, blocking out young home buyers from being able to buy their first home. And that's so absurd. So I fully support blocking those equity companies from buying up single family homes and let buyers, individual buyers, be able to have a chance to buy their first home. There's another thing at play there, Cenk, that I want to bring up. In Washington, D.C., what I learned is it's always the donors that are the ones that they get their back scratched and they get it their way. And so while I think that bill was incredibly popular, we saw, like you said, 90 votes in the Senate. That's amazing, from the left and the right coming together to help Americans to be able to buy homes. What we're seeing, the pushback in the White House, is probably on behalf of these big equity firms and big donors. And this is what we've seen from the administration, is the donors are getting their way and not the American people. And that's something I have a big problem with. I would rather see the American people be put first, and these big donors and big equity firms get told, get back in your place and let the American people buy a home. So I always think it's something more something more behind the scenes when an important issue like this is getting blocked.
Yeah, so Nina, look, this is definitely a proposal that the left wing agrees with. In fact, as we're all saying here, the vote was 89-9, but magically it's not going to pass anyway. And so, that type of thing happens when Republicans are in charge and Democrats are in charge. So what's your sense of why this isn't passing, even though it's enormously popular?
Yeah, I mean, they playing games. I wish President Donald J. Trump would use his incredible power to stand up for the American people in the way that he ran. He ran on a populist plank. He ran on America first. It doesn't get any more America first than making sure that people can afford homes, which is part of the quote unquote American dream. But as the Congresswoman said, the owner donors, that's what I call them. The owner donors are going to have the final say. That in the Senate, and I wouldn't doubt that folks have meetings like this. We're gonna pass this in the Senate, but over in the House, we're gonna shake it up, and the owner donors ultimately get what they want. The ruling class ultimately gets what it wants, and everyday working class people of this country are left to suffer for it. It is patently immoral, if you ask me. We have the power to spend billions of dollars a day on wars, but we won't end homelessness in the United States of America, which we could do in a heartbeat. Domestic tranquility, the last time I checked, is a thing. And Maslow hierarchy of needs is very clear about how people actually get to self-actualization within their lifetime. And having your base need of shelter and food and clothing, that is vitally important. So if the president truly wants to go down in history as being one of the greatest presidents, I mean, he'll tell you he's the greatest right now of all times ever lived and ever will live, then ensuring that this bill passed would be one step towards doing that.
Yeah, so we're gonna go to immigration next, where I suspect we're gonna have some significant disagreement. But last thing on this, so I thought that Trump's executive order on this was really good. I'm a little skeptical that the executive orders are ever meant in a real way. Unfortunately, my skepticism was buttressed, if you will, by Donald Trump statement in the State of the Union and what he said recently to Mike Johnson. So Marjorie, I'm gonna show you both of those things and then get your reaction. Let's watch the State of the Union comment on housing first.
And low interest rates will solve the Biden-created housing problem well, at the same time protecting the values of those people who already own a house that really feel rich for the first time in their lives. We want to protect those values. We want to keep those values up. We're going to do both. And we are going to keep it that way.
So he's saying we are going to keep housing prices high because that's a positive thing for people who own homes. That's one way of looking at it. And apparently he told Mike Johnson, according to the New Republic, that, quote, no one gives an F about housing. So do you agree with the president there or no?
I completely disagree with the president. A lot of people give a strong F about housing, and rightfully so. I'm a small government conservative, and this is a situation where I think the government should completely stay out of it. I just saw a graph this morning where home sales are actually at 2008 crisis levels. And I've owned a construction company for over 20 years. I remember 2008 very well because it was a very difficult time for construction, for home builders, for housing, for real estate. This comes on the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, absolute crisis. And of course, many Americans suffered through that and lost their homes through bankruptcy, and it was terrible. So no, I completely disagree with the president, who happens to be a billionaire, and I think that's why he can't really relate to the American people and how important it is to the American people to be able to buy their home. But I think it should be left to the market of home values. And if there's a lot of homes for sale on the market and they're not selling, well, guess what? Those home prices have got to come down so that these houses start selling and the American people can afford them.
All right, let's move on to immigration. So the president apparently telling Republicans recently, do not do mass deportations or do not talk about mass deportations. So Representative Greene, everyone seems to have agreed you put away the criminals who are undocumented. That was very popular. When it got to the mass deportations, it was far less popular. So what's your take on whether they should continue to try to do mass deportations?
I served on Homeland Security as a member of Congress, and under the Biden administration, we saw tens of millions of people come across our border, and I thought that was completely wrong. I'm a big believer in strong borders, the same way I like to lock my doors and windows and make sure my home is safe. I want our country safe. So yes, I agree that we can all agree that criminal illegal aliens must be rounded up. They must be prosecuted. We saw fentanyl overdose increase in my district by 280%. And I'm friends with multiple people whose children were murdered by criminal illegal aliens. It was a very serious issue, and it continues to be one. Now, I will say this: if the three of us go on a vacation and we go to, say, Colombia, and we overstay our visa and decide that we want to just stay in Colombia because we like it there and we want to work jobs and we want to continue carrying on in Colombia, the Colombian government, they're going to arrest us, they're going to put us in jail, and they're eventually going to deport us. America has the same laws, and they must be upheld. If people are undocumented in our country, they need to find their path. They need to work the pathway, the legal pathway, whether they want a work visa or they're trying to become a citizen. And many Americans have done that, and I absolutely love it and support it. I love to hear the stories of people earning their citizenship in America, but they're earning it the legal way. And so I'm a big believer in our laws, upholding our laws, and I'm also a believer and making sure that we know the people who are in our country and that they're documented. And so I think there needs to be a legal process there. I don't believe in amnesty. I don't believe in just handing citizenship to people. I believe that everyone should have to work the same system. And so I just think that it's very important for us to make sure that our laws are upheld.
So Senator Turner, Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying, look, if they overstay their visa or they're here in a way that is outside of our laws, well, we should enforce our laws. So do you disagree with that?
Well, you won't get any argument with me about that. We, again, are a sovereign nation. We have rules. People should follow those rules. However, roughing up people, shooting American citizens in the head, taking away people's or standing on people's civil rights and civil liberties is no way to do it. I am old enough to remember that President Barack Obama, heretofore, I know President Trump is in competition with him over this, but he was called, the deporter in chief. He deported a lot of undocumented people out of this country. He still has the record for now, but I know President Trump is gonna try to beat him. And we did not see the type of blood and horror in the streets as we see right now. So I am not one of those Democrats that does not believe that this country has a right to enforce its laws, but it is how we enforce the laws. Do we have enough judges, for example, on the border? Different people are in this country and they may have different statuses. How do we deal with our laws and with our rules and ensuring that we're looking at people's individual situations and dealing with them accordingly, but not doing so in a way that causes death, that separates children from their parents and causes the type of horror that we saw in Minneapolis and that we're seeing all over the country. You don't weaponize ICE against undocumented people or against American citizens. I have a brother who traveled for many years across the world, and he told Congresswoman similar story. He was in said place and they had certain rules, and he, as an American citizen working there, had to follow the rule. So you get no pushback from me on that. But what I don't like is how it's done. What I don't appreciate is that many Congresses and presidents have failed in setting the rules and following the rules. And so we should set the rules and follow the rules. Right. But I would hope that all of us would agree that killing people and roughing them up, and some of the horror stories that we're hearing about some undocumented people being locked up, being raped, being molested, being beaten, that we as Americans and especially as Christians would not support those efforts.
Yeah. So,
or that behavior. It's not an effort, but that we would not accept that type of behavior. Right. And also how this president is weaponizing that against, again, fear of the other.
So, okay, it's easy to theoretically say, take undocumented people who aren't following the law and deal with it in the ways that you guys kind of agreed with in the beginning. The implementation is what's difficult, right? So Representative Greene, there's Alligator Alcatraz, there's Alex Preddy and Renee Good getting killed in Minneapolis. So is that the right way to do it, or would you do it some other way?
Well, Alex Preddy and Renee Good should be alive today, and I thought their deaths were tragic. I still don't understand. They were protesting aggressively, but I still think their deaths are wrong. I do want to say that. I think there's ways to do this, but we have to look at what's happened over the decades. And I'm really glad that Nina brought up President Obama. He did an incredible job with mass deportations, but also think about this. American citizens weren't out protesting President Obama's ICE while they were carrying out these mass deportations, but yet it seemed to be the tone coming from President Trump's administration, and we saw Democrats out in the streets protesting President Trump's ICE. So there is that difference. There were no protests then, but yet now there were huge protests this time. But we have to look at decades. We've had decades of Republican presidents and Democrat presidents and their administrations that basically turned a blind eye and would just allow so many people to come across our border, come across work jobs, and no one said or did anything about it. And so we have all these undocumented immigration or immigrants in our country, illegal immigrants in our country that had lived this life of being able to live here, being able to rent a house, being able to work a job, and no one ever forced them into compliance under our law. And so I think that's part of the problem is the administrations in the past that set that precedence. And so that's something that does need to be addressed. But I think it's extremely important to make sure everyone is legal and work the legal pathways.
So real quick, just hold on. Let me follow up real quick though. So Representative Greene, but if they have been here 10, 20 years, they do have a house, they do have a business, you'd still deport them?
If we were in another foreign country and we were there illegally for 10 to 20 years and we owned a home and we owned a business and our children were in their schools, we would be deported. So yes, I think that there needs to be a process. I don't know that they need to be deported immediately, but I think that there should be a process of, okay, you're living here and working here. Let's get you over here. You need to get in this line. You need a work visa. You have to be documented. You have to be legal. If they're a criminal illegal alien, my goodness, deport them or prosecute them. They need to be held accountable for that. But we have to work a process where everyone is documented or deported, and that just may be the case for some people.
Okay, so we're running short on time, but Senator Turner, real quick to you, was Biden wrong? Was Biden, just let me ask these questions, was Biden wrong to let those many people in? And is there really a way of saying, hey, if you're not here legally, you have to leave without getting ICE to physically remove them?
Yeah, we should make a way. We do a lot of things. So why not do these types of things humanely? One of the things that happened under President Obama is that, you didn't hear stories of American citizens being shot in the head. So he did not weaponize ICE in the way that President Donald J. Trump has weaponized ICE and putting fear in the hearts of the American people. You have the American people standing up saying that this is not right. And when you see such atrocities, you have got to stand up. If people had seen these types of atrocities under President Obama, you would have seen the American people stand up. And there are a lot of people on the Democratic side of the ledger that did not agree with President Obama, even though it wasn't these types of murders and trampling on people's First Amendment rights and their Fourth Amendment rights and being. And even judges have stepped in to say that how President Trump is comporting himself is wrong. So yes, where there is a will, there is a way. We do not have to treat undocumented people in such a horrific way that this administration is doing. And they're only doing it to throw red meat to their base.
Last thing, bottom line, Representative Greene, mass deportations, yes or no?
I think it has to be case by case. I think it's hard to just say yes or no to that.
I see. Senator Turner?
Yeah, absolutely. Case by case, we got to do that.
Okay, interesting. I think we had some disagreement.
For the criminal element.
Yeah,
except for the criminal element.
Yeah, we certainly had some disagreement there, but surprising number of agreements too, which I'm actually genuinely surprised by in that case. All right, fascinating. So you guys are amazing. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for having a grown-up conversation where the right and left can talk. And we tried to find topics that you guys disagreed on as well, but there was a significant amount of agreement here. And once you take like the toxic politics out of it, it is amazing how much Americans agree.
That's right. Thank you, Cenk. Thank you, Nina.
Thank you, Marjorie. No full outrage here.
Yeah,
just tell it like it is.
That's right.
And I agree.
Some of our members want to ask you guys about that actually, and about what goes wrong when you go into Congress and national politics. So we're gonna do that for our members. So if you're watching right now, you can hit the join button on YouTube or tyt.com/join, and they're gonna join us for a couple more minutes of questions from you guys. So looking forward to that as well. For everyone else, thank you so much. Have a great night and have a good weekend.